All right, so we're about to get into this article that just came out talking about how the Activision Blizzard merger is not something gamers would want. We're going into this media thing now that we know that Microsoft is basically at the finish line of acquiring Activision Blizzard, and now that this merger is going through, a lot of media sites are starting to attack the deal and say that Microsoft doing this isn't the right thing, and that this merger is going to hurt gamers overall, while also praising a lot of what Sony's done, which to me is some of the most egregious things and anti-consumer things that gamers have seen, yet they champion it. So let's get into everything that's going on, because I know there's a lot to talk about here, and I want to get into every single detail because so far, the last several weeks, I feel like a lot of people are attacking not only Xbox and Microsoft, but PC gamers and every other type of gamer that isn't on one platform, which is the PlayStation platform. So let's get into it. Alright, so you know the drill. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button and that like button. And if you want to be notified on future videos, hit that small little bell icon. And if you want to go that extra mile to support the channel, hit that join button. All the support is greatly appreciated. Alright, so we all know that gamers and a lot of people around the gaming media since last January have been looking at the Activision Blizzard deal. It's been talked about ad nauseum. Everybody's been going through it, and everybody knows that this merger is probably going to go through now that the CMA and the EU and everything else is kind of falling into place. What's happening is that Sony is attacking everything, and people are starting to realize that a lot of the things that Sony was saying were either lies or just grasping at straws trying to stop a merger because it hurts them and actually forces them to compete in other genres that they particularly just didn't want to compete in, which is first-person shooters, or more importantly, multiplayer-focused games. And I just want to jump into this article because, man, does it go hard against Microsoft and start attacking it from every single angle. Here's what's said. Gamers don't win with Microsoft's Activision Blizzard merger. The game industry is no stranger to mergers. Microsoft in particular has made some huge moves in gaming, buying out big players such as Mojang, Obsidian, and Bethesda. However, though, I personally think the conglomerate passed the too far mark decades ago. The entire industry has been making a fuss about their latest venture, that being their plans to buy out Activision Blizzard for a whopping $68.7 billion back in January 2022. Despite costing more than the GDP of a couple countries, Microsoft stands to make their money back, acquiring franchises such as Call of Duty, Candy Crush, Overwatch, Warcraft, Diablo, and more. However, gamers stand to lose a good deal from this merger, even those of us using Microsoft's subscription service Game Pass, which would inevitably bundle most of these games into the subscription fee, with significant dilution of competition and increased power for Microsoft. This acquisition will give the tech giant even greater sway in the market in a fashion similar to Disney's near monopoly in film, spelling nothing good for anyone who isn't at the top of the corporate food chain. Okay, so I do have to say that Microsoft coming in and grabbing in a big publisher, or one of the biggest publishers in Activision Blizzard, can look a little daunting, so to speak, that they might start dominating the market. But when you look at Microsoft and Xbox as a whole, they don't dominate any market in gaming. And they made that fully clear during this whole transition, where they're talking about the mergers and talking to all of the lawyers that are fighting against this, saying we are not in first place in anything. Because to be honest, Xbox isn't first place in anything with gaming. They just aren't. That's just a fact, people. And I know that's hard to hear as an Xbox gamer, but it is what it is, and we all knew that. But this whole thing about if you're at the top of the corporate food chain is the only way you're going to compete, well, at the top of the corporate food chain is Sony and PlayStation, and all the other people like Nintendo. Those are the companies that have dominated gaming for close to 20 to 25 to 30 years. So one of the lines in here that really got me kind of kerfuffled was talking about how this is the too far mark decades ago, or that Microsoft, the conglomerate, has passed that decades ago. I'm not understanding how they did that. They grew internally, they barely had any, and I truly mean any, first-party studios during the Xbox One era and the 360 era. I know people look at those as fantasy, that the 360 era was the best, but Microsoft did not have any first-party studios that can bring out consistent games for them. A lot of the games that they had were third-party deals. So I'm not seeing this whole decades ago they were starting to buy everything out. That's not what happened. What happened decades ago was Sony was buying studios like crazy. A lot of those studios that now are internally, as they would say, growing isn't what's happening. They bought those studios, they didn't build them, and they started growing them and flooding them with money, much like Xbox did with Obsidian Entertainment and a bunch of other big companies. But Obsidian isn't one of the biggest ones. I know they're a big studio, they're making a lot of stuff, but they were crowdfunded for a lot of their games, and to be honest, they were even talking about that they were keeping the lights on by making these crowdfunded games. So now with Xbox, they're starting to become a bit of a bigger player. Not to mention, they haven't brought out a lot of games lately. I know that sounds weird, but a lot of the studios Xbox bought in 2018 and beyond were smaller studios that needed help, or studios that brought out a lot of stuff and had potential, but they just needed more money. And now, I do want to kind of start shifting towards that. What's going to happen with all these things? This is one of the big things that the article mentions here. They talk about the data and gamingindustry.biz talking about the merger and making up 65% of the market now that Microsoft and Activision are together. And they also talk about the Elder Scrolls, Doom, Arcane Studios, and all these other games like Starfield, and always kind of pigeonholing it into Disney to show that they're like Disney, that they're going to have a monopoly in gaming and flood the market with subpar content. That's what I don't understand. I understand that sometimes some stuff comes out and it doesn't hit with the audience, and it's viewed as subpar. Something like Sea of Thieves was viewed as subpar, yet 35 million people have played it. So maybe this is just a way for Xbox and the people that are creating these games to flesh out their creative freedom, and that's what Game Pass can help them do. Do I think Game Pass is the be-all answer for everything? No, I don't think so. I think that Game Pass is good for a subgroup of gamers. I think that it's a great value, but I don't think it's for everyone. Some people just want to own their stuff on Steam. Some people just want to own their stuff on PlayStation. And some people just want to own their stuff on the Xbox platform. That's what that whole thing is. And as they make these games, sure, there might be some hitters and sure, there might be some misses. But overall, I don't see them going down that subpar content because that's what's been talked about for years. And I want to go into that, like what happened to this reputation that is happening? What happened to this monetization? That's another thing they go into. Here's what's said in the article. Activision Blizzard has a dubious reputation when it comes to monetization in its games. From popularizing pseudo-gambling in games with Overwatch's loot boxes to putting microtransactions in the remaster of Modern Warfare, not only a game with an upfront charge, but one that was nearly 10 years old at the time, Activision has made strides in video game penny pinching and received relatively little heat compared to a company like EA. Not to be outdone, Microsoft set the tone for the in-game economies of the current and last generation. While Sony and Nintendo were releasing critically acclaimed first-party titles, Microsoft has released games like Rise Son of Rome and Forza 5, games that created the template for the landscape of the current AAA industry by helping normalize microtransactions in premium games near enough their infancy. I do not understand this at all. Rise Son of Rome, while I love the game, I know it wasn't critically acclaimed, but they're going back all the way to 2015, 2014, games that came out where Microsoft and Xbox were getting no money into gaming. They were basically almost shutting down. That's right, Xbox almost shut down, and you're going to go off of those first-party games, and then they jump several years into Forza 5, which is one of the highest-rated games on Game Pass and one of the highest-rated games in gaming for that year. That is a showstopper. I'm not understanding the whole point of this article. I don't understand why it's attacking things and saying that Microsoft is going down the route of microtransactions. One game that I'll bring up is Sea of Thieves. They had plans for online microtransactions because it's an online-only game where a lot of those transactions are just cosmetic. They don't affect the gameplay. Yet when the game came out, they knew they didn't have enough content, so they pulled back on the microtransactions. They didn't put them out. This is Microsoft. This is Rare. This is them doing this. They waited until they brought out content for a full year before they started pushing a little bit of the pets, pushing a little bit of the cosmetics, because they knew they had to do something to attract people into the game. And it was a great way that Microsoft and Rare handled that. Yet, you don't see that in this article. They bring up one of the lowest rated games in Rise Son of Rome, which is a game I love, and one of the highest rated games in Forza 5. It's like they try to cover all bases, saying even the highly rated games that are AAA are going to not be enough, and they're going to charge you for microtransactions, when I haven't spent one microtransaction on any of those games, and fully enjoyed them and got to experience everything in them. But that's neither here nor there. Even with that, this is what they talk about in comparing it to Game Pass. Even if these games go on Game Pass, the power centralized between these two particular egregious parties could very well lead to even those games on the service having perhaps some of the most audacious monetization we've seen in games yet, especially with how much competition would diminish. So what competition is diminishing, and why is everything so much fear-mongering? Why are you putting a bad light on Game Pass if you're getting games at such a good deal, yet it's going to have microtransactions, you're going to start losing your mind? I don't get this whole thing of fear-mongering. I don't understand it. Game Pass is a good deal on its own. So if there is microtransactions attached to it, why are you saying that they're going to even be more egregious when we haven't seen that? I understand that there's some stuff out there that can be egregious. Things like Avengers, things like even Fortnite, where a skin costs $20 basically. I don't get that whole point. Why not attack those games? Why not go after those games that are bringing those microtransactions in the forefront, and it's their basis of model of how they make their money? Yet Microsoft's basis model is Game Pass, and it is their platform that they use, not the microtransactions attached to it. We all know that everybody's egregious in it. And not to mention, let's look at what Sony's going to be doing with all their multiplayer games that are coming out. They want games as a service. They said they have 10 games that are being built that are games as a service. Where's the article of being fearful of that? Since they bring out such critically acclaimed games that everybody wants to play, what do you think is going to happen in those 10 games? Do you think they're just going to bring them out for free or charge $70? Which, by the way, Sony set that precedent? No, I'm sure that's not in this article, because why would it be? That's the whole point of this whole thing. They don't want to go in there and talk about this stuff because that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of Microsoft actually competing with the gaming industry and maybe, just maybe, changing it up a little bit. That's what they're fearful of, is the change. And that's what everybody's afraid of, is change. I mean, we just had somebody who is pretty prominent in the gaming industry make fun of PC gamers because of the way Last of Us released on the PC with all the bugs. And I know it was a joke, and I know it was a skit, and I know people think it's all funny, but in the end, you kind of look at that person and you think there's some truth behind those eyes. And I know that's kind of weird to say, but the way they were attacking everything about, oh, don't play Last of Us Part 1 on the PC because the port sucks, what you should have done is spent your money on a PS5 because it's way better suited to you. How about you just not care what people do and then not attack them for where they play their games? It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to lie. And I am talking about Greg Miller, and I am talking about that whole skit thing. Did I laugh? Of course I did. But at the end, I know what he's trying to do. I know that it's a hot take, and I know he's trying to get some attention or just be funny. But to me, it's a little weird that you're attacking people for where they're gaming because, you know, the console war, the PC war, the gaming wars, as people say. Yet there's one company that is actually unifying all of that. It's the people that are creating games for all platforms, where you can play on Xbox, you can play on PC, or you can play on cloud, and it all just connects together and you can enjoy where you want to play. Talk about changing the industry. All the while, when you look at Sony's developers, they're going to be doing the same thing. They are going to be buying studios. They are going to be developing games for PC, which they are already doing. And Naughty Dog came out saying that they're going to be developing their games for PC simultaneously. So all these things that are going through, Sony's doing the same exact thing. And I did put out a tweet after the Activision Blizzard deal looked like it was going through and everything was starting to fall into place. I said, this is where the fun begins. This is where people and developers and publishers and all these other companies are going to start buying studios and publishers. We know that Sony has a stance to maybe buy Capcom. We know that they might buy Square Enix. There's all these rumors floating around. And not to mention, Sony's been going around trying to stop this deal. But most of all, we can see what's happening. Tencent, Activision, all these other publishers like Ubisoft and even EA, and not to mention Sony, are going to look to buy studios because Microsoft took the brunt of the attack on this. With the Activision Blizzard deal, they took everything on the chin and they came through, and they're going to get one of the biggest publishers. They went through all the legislation, they went through all of the regulations, and now the floodgates are going to open. I think this is going to start a crazy change in the landscape of gaming for years to come. Yet, it's Microsoft taking the hit to the media bias. It's Microsoft taking the hit when they buy something this big, and it's Microsoft taking the hit when they change gaming with Game Pass. I know that's weird. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but without Microsoft, there wouldn't be competition. It'd be status quo. What has Sony done in the last several years that has shown you that they changed the status quo? I get they bring out big games. I get they bring out amazing games, and the technology behind them is stunning. I love their first-party games, but that's all I love is their first-party games. I know they have great hardware. That's all great and dandy, but overall, what have they done to actually push things forward like Microsoft has done? Microsoft brought online to consoles. They brought a lot of the multiplayer-centric things to consoles. They focused on co-op games. They've done a lot of things that have pushed the industry forward. And then if you look at everything being connected with PC, cloud, and console, they're doing that also. I like what Microsoft does. It's why I'm a fan of Microsoft. It's why I'm a fan of Xbox and what they've done with their platform. But overall, I like more that they're pushing competition with Sony, forcing the landscape of gaming to change, and actually breaking people out of their old habits. Just like Epic is doing on PC. Everybody loves Steam, and I'm included in that. I'm a PC gamer. I love Steam. I love everything about it. I have a Steam Deck. I'm integrated into their software. But overall, I love that Epic is coming in and challenging their store. I love that Battle.net came in and was challenging everything. That's the whole point of this. That's what I enjoy, and I want competition to be at its highest, which is what Microsoft is doing with Sony, and what Sony's doing with them, and what Nintendo is probably going to do later on. Let's hope this all happens in a fast time so we can see everything coming out and we see all these games coming out. But overall, we'll see what happens because Microsoft is literally taking on all the media bias, and that's just a fact, people. But let me know what you think about this. Do you think Microsoft taking all the hits to the chin for the media bias is pretty brave of them to do? Or do you think it's a lot of people just mad that Sony's not the one getting this acquisition and that they're going to miss out on games like maybe the next Diablo or a couple first-party games from Blizzard and Activision? Or do you think it's because of this Call of Duty thing and Candy Crush and Overwatch and all these games that maybe some platform might get? Or is it because Microsoft is finally competing in the biggest way they've ever seen and they don't know how to handle it? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button to support us out the channel more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my latest videos. Plus, I love interacting with everyone there, so get on Twitter and let's talk about gaming. Also, follow me on Xbox Live. My gamertag is Zalker87, just like my channel name. See what games I'm playing, and let's go compete in achievements for the month. So right now, I've been playing a bunch of games. I've been enjoying Forza Horizon. I've been going into the Rally expansion. Man, I love that game. It's so fun. I can play it in a party, talk to a buddy, and I get to drive around, go through some cool races. I'm really enjoying it. I think the map is pretty awesome. The world is awesome. And I've been playing it on my 4090, and I got to say, with ray tracing on extreme quality, it's freaking insane how beautiful that game is. People, it doesn't do it justice. You need to see it to believe it, especially on the OLED. I think it's gorgeous. And I've been also jumping into MLB The Show 2023. Man, I just feel like this is a staple now. You got to keep this on Game Pass for the longest time. Sign as big of a contract as you need to, because I love playing this. I just already had the Giants, that's my team, the San Francisco Giants, win the World Series. I've gone through multiple games. I'm getting achievements. I just enjoy that game. It is stunning. I think it needs to be a little bit better optimized on the Series X. I know that sounds weird, but I don't think Sony put a whole lot of time on that game, and it's inferior on there. I love the way it looks. I'm glad I can play it on cloud and on the console. That's where I've been playing it the most, is on the console. But they need to figure out how to make that go up to like 4K resolution, have all the bells and whistles, because I just feel like they're just kind of porting it on there and forgetting about it. But let me know what you're playing. Are you playing something on your Series X, your PS5, your PC, your Steam Deck, your Switch, or are you playing something else? Let me know down below, because that's what we're here for. It's to talk games. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.